Hi everyone, welcome to our June 2025 SITREP. I recently received a message from Beaver to say the following. Hi John, just wanted to let you know that my recent postings on Fighting Men of Rhodesia and a few other sites have really taken off bigger than I expected. The response has been incredible, and it seems like almost everyone is really resonating with the spiritual side of it, especially knowing that I served during those years. So Beaver's posts on Fighting Men of Rhodesia and on some of the other pages was about PTSD. And he says, I've been getting a flood of emails and messenger messages from people reaching out, thanking me, sharing their own burdens. It's deeply moving. Now here's the big bit. My posts are going to be read out this weekend at a camp for Rhodesian and South African war vets in Pietermaritzburg, Natal. Over 500 men will be there. That hit me hard. It's not just words anymore, it's a ministry, brother. As you know, I'm not much of a speaker. Writing is my comfort zone. But you are a Christian, and you've got the voice, the presence, and the heart to bring this message home. I really think you should consider giving an in-depth talk on FMR about this whole subject. Faith, trauma, war, and healing. It'll go down well, John. These men need it. Many are searching for something solid, something eternal. Please pray on it, and I hope you'll step into this. God's clearly moving through all of this, and I believe He can use you in a big way. Yours in Christ, Beaver Shaw. Yeah, PTSD it's a thing, hey? Even 40 years or 50 years after the events, it can suddenly wake up and bite you. I still struggle with it to some extent, although not nearly as badly as I did when I was younger. I went through a stage of about 12 years of really self-destructive behavior, going out and drinking till all hours of the night. In those days, I was a stockbroker, and drinking was part of the culture. But I would drive home in the early hours of the morning. I was living in Llandudno, and I had a Maserati bi-turbo, which I used to. Sometimes it would be raining, and I would be driving too fast, and I'd lose control of the Maserati and end up crashing it into. Oh my word! I think eventually the insurance company said to me, "Listen, we're not going to insure you anymore because you've crashed too many cars." Fortunately, I was never injured, and fortunately, no one else was ever injured. But I mean, it's that kind of self-destructive behavior that's typical of PTSD, and really, for me, what helped to pull me out of it was the fellowship that I had with other soldiers. Really, in many ways, I must thank Trevor Desfountain for all the help that he gave me, and the comfort of his fellowship, and Tim Bax and Jock Hutton. We used to go out often, almost every week, and have a Friday lunch together, and reminisce about amusing stories and things like that. Not too many war stories, but seeing, just being in the presence of those great warriors, and seeing that they were okay, helped me not to feel so sorry for myself, because I was a real pipsqueak compared to those guys. But I wanted to, it's not just the NCOs and the troopies who suffer from PTSD. I don't know if any of you have heard of Major General Matthew John Holmes, CBE DSO. He committed suicide on the 29th of he committed suicide in October 2021, in the early days of the COVID, I suppose. And he was the commanding officer of the Royal Marines. So he was a Royal Marine Commando. He'd won the CBE, which is the British Order of the British Empire. He'd won a DSO, which is a Distinguished Service Order, and he'd won the Legion of Merit from the USA. He was suffering from substantial stress because he had recently, his position as CEO of the Royal Marines had been terminated. I think a major general is like a 2-star general. Anyway, I may be wrong about that. And he was replaced by a guy, I think he was a 3-star general. But he felt really bad about the withdrawal from Afghanistan and having to leave behind the Afghan officers who, they failed to help them get out of the country, and they ended up, in the hands of the Taliban. At the same time that all this was happening, his wife threatened to divorce him, and she came home one day to find him sitting on the bed with a shotgun next to him, and ended up calling the police, who came and took the shotgun away, and asked why he did it. He said, well, if he's going to lose his family, then life's just not worth living anymore. Anyway, 10 days later, he finally did commit suicide, and so that was tragic. But really, it's a soldier's thing. The no man's land between being a combat soldier and becoming a civilian. If you don't make the transition to being a civilian, then you kind of live in a no man's land, and in a way the war just continues for you. Another guy I wanted to mention is not a British soldier, but an American soldier by the name of Master Sergeant Colt Schirmer, who was a US Marine. On June the 6th, 2021, we lost one of our finest, not to enemy fire, not in a faraway battlefield, but to a silent war. Many of our warriors still fight alone. Master Sergeant Colt Schirmer wasn't just a Marine. He was the kind you hear stories about, the kind who runs towards the fight when others run away, the kind who earns the respect of every man who ever put on the uniform beside him. Colt enlisted in 2000, just 18 years old and full of fire. He didn't just serve, he excelled. Dive school, sniper school, halo jumps, countless combat deployments with MARSOC. He was the sharp edge of the spear in the global war on terror. His officers called him the best of the best, and they weren't just being kind. He taught others to shoot straighter, move faster, think sharper. He led Marines in the hardest places on earth and came home with medals and scars no one could see. Colt was 2 weeks away from marrying the love of his life. He was a proud father, a loyal son, a brother, a teammate, a legend. But on the 6th of June, 2021, the war inside him became too heavy. We're sorry you thought that this was the only path to peace, Colt. You carried so much for so long. Now may you finally find rest, warrior. To his daughter Brielle and his fiancée Jennifer, his parents, brothers, and every Marine who ever served beside him, your grief is shared by an entire brotherhood. Now, that's a typical story, isn't it? I mean, for many of us, myself included, we have found peace. Beaver, myself, guys like Tony Ballinger, etc. We have found peace through Jesus Christ. But there are, that to me is the ultimate answer. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. He said, come to me, you who are thirsty, and I will give you drink. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, because my yoke is easy and my burden is light. If we come to Jesus, we find rest in our souls, and we find reconciliation, and we find forgiveness. And so, for many of us, Jesus Christ has been the answer. But there are also non-religious resources available. My dad, for example, after having been part of World War II in the Air Force, later became an Anglican priest, and he had a heart for people who were suffering and suicidal, and he went to the UK and joined a man by the name of Chad Vara, and together they started an organization which is still going today called the Samaritans. The Samaritans have 200 branches throughout the UK, Scotland, Ireland, Wales. They have about 23,000 volunteers working for them. Many of them are highly trained. I believe the patron of the Samaritans is none other than the King, King Charles. And my dad created something of lasting value, where they have a hotline that if you're feeling suicidal, you can call in, and somebody who's trained will speak to you. My feeling, though, is that psychiatrists and psychologists, while some of them may be helpful, few of them can really understand what you've been through. So for me, quite honestly, the most help that I've received, apart from having a relationship with the Lord, is through the brotherhood of my fellow soldiers. And that's where you're going to really find help from someone who's not going to judge you, who's going to totally understand where you're coming from. And so that's a few words on PTSD. I will certainly do what Beaver suggested and think about what I can do to make a comprehensive talk on the subject. We have had a couple of talks on the subject, and I will put a link up from Barry Swarenstein. Barry's done a couple of talks on fighting men of Rhodesia, and he's got a particular gift in this area. Talking about Tony Ballinger, when I gave this talk, I asked Tony if he had anything he wanted me to mention, and he wrote to me the following. The biggest challenge that I face, John, is the lack of people to interview. I have determined that guys back out for two main reasons. One, they don't want to be judged by their peers. Two, they feel their stories do not compare to others. And possibly poor memory. I tell the guys to do a synopsis, and this really works to open memory banks. Maybe you can address these three things and say to them that all stories are valid. I find writing down bullet points and thinking about what stories you want to tell and anecdotes you want to describe really helpful. And while you're doing that, another story will come to mind, and then you jot that down as well. I find if you don't jot it down, then in the excitement and whatever of giving the talk, you will probably forget a couple of key stories, and then only later the next day or whatever, while you're thinking back on the interview, think, gee whiz, I forgot to talk about that, and I should have talked about that. So what Tony says is all talks are equally valid, whether you were a parachute dispatcher, or whether you were a paratrooper, or whether you were a cook, whether you were in armored cars or whether you were in the CID or Part 2, you know, let us tell the story about Rhodesia. Let us keep that story alive and bring it to life. I recently watched that movie, We Were Soldiers, about the Battle of Ayadrang Valley. And was it Colonel Halmore? He was of the 7th Cavalry. And remember, there was a journalist who was there. And he said to this journalist, I'll never forgive myself. So the journalist said to him, for what, sir? That my men died and I didn't. So the journalist said, sir, I don't know how to tell this story. Well, you got to, Joe. You got to tell the American people what these men did here. You tell them how my troopers died. Yes, sir. The movie ends off by saying, we who have seen war will never stop seeing it. In the silence of the night, we will always hear the screams. So this is our story, for we were soldiers once, and young. So true, isn't it? But we have a story to tell, and we must tell it. Even if we don't do it for ourselves, let's do it for those who died and were killed and can't tell their stories. If you were there and you know what happened, tell the story. Lastly, I wanted to just mention that there seems to have been a change in YouTube's policies with regard to monetization, in other words, earning money from adverts and copyright. So I suppose it's with the introduction of artificial intelligence, they've become a lot stricter and have been clamping down on anything to do with war. So even guys who want to talk about the Normandy landings in World War II or something find their videos are being demonetized. So, you know, you have to, for example, you can't even mention the word war. You have to spell it W*R, you know, and you can't, you know, I mean, there's a guy who's got a news channel about news here in Southeast Asia, and he wants to tell the story of a foreigner who was found dead in his hotel room after, I don't know, had a heart attack or something. But he can't use the word dead, you know. He has to say they found him unalived, or he was unalive. I mean, how ridiculous is that? That will people get offended by the word dead or offended by the word war? You know, I just don't understand it anymore. It's just getting crazy. Anyway, I just noticed that it was taking a long time for my videos to get approved, and I noticed I started getting some of my videos demonetized. And then I would submit a human appeal, and my appeals have been, some have been successful and some have not been successful. The bottom line is I can't rely on earning money from YouTube anymore. My main source of income is from Patreon. And I've noticed that our Patreon membership has been very faithful, but very static. I have about, all in all, I have about 70 people who support me financially. On average, my income is $700 a month, which works out to, if 70 people are each giving $10 a month. That's my income. A big slice of that is taken up by my rent. But I don't live in a very expensive place, but I'm comfortable here. And then another bunch is taken up by the expensive medicine that I have to take. And to be honest, 700 is not quite enough. I really need to be earning more in the region of double that amount, or even $2,000 a month, as opposed to $700 a month. And if you think about it, we have 22,000 or 21,800 subscribers. 21,880 subscribers as of this morning, of which 70 are assisting financially, contributing towards the channel, which is 0.34%, I believe. Yeah, 0.344%. So less than 1% of our subscribers actually support the channel financially. And I'd like to make that 1%. In other words, if we've got a third of a percent, then I'd like another 2/3 of people to join, and that will bring our income up to $2,100 a month, as opposed to $700 a month. So I'd really like you to think about making the effort to subscribe and become a patron. It's not that difficult. There are other ways to contribute as well, through PayPal, and I've also will put up on the screen my South African bank account details. I also have a bank account in the Philippines, and from time to time some people contribute to that bank account. I know in the past Clive Midlane sent me some money from Zambia, which arrived safely in my account in the Philippines, and that was a big help to me at the time. Thank you, Clive. But more than the one-off help that I get sometimes, what I'd really appreciate would be regular monthly help, so that I don't have to worry about YouTube. And I'll put in an insert of a history channel where you can see I'm not the only channel that's suffering. You'll have a look at this.
Hey, it's Chris Kane. You're probably used to hearing me during one of our advertising spots, but today I want to talk about something a little bit different. Every video that we create is more than just content. It's a blend of research, of creativity, of passion for history. We do it because we believe in the power of history, because its lessons, its stories, and its ability to connect everybody is what we're all about. Sometimes the reality of operating a YouTube channel presents challenges in the form of demonetization occasionally, which impacts the ability to produce content that we're passionate about. Now we're looking at you, our amazing audience, to ask for your support in keeping the channel, our shared passion, alive and thriving. We're inviting you to join us on Patreon and contribute to the ongoing creation of our content. By joining us on Patreon, you're doing more than just supporting our content. You're becoming an integral part of the community, and we're dedicated to preserving and promoting history. Remember, every bit of support makes a real difference. If you'd like to learn more about how you can help, please visit the link in the description below. Thank you, as always, for your interest and your hunger for history.
Anyway, guys, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this SITREP, and thank you for your support. God bless. Bye.